If you'd like to earn CPE credit for listening to this episode, visit earmarkcpe.com. Download the app, take a short quiz, and get your CPE certificate. Continuing education has never been so easy. And now, on to the episode. Hello and welcome to Oh My Fraud, a true crime podcast where most of the victims live and sometimes our podcast is live. I'm Greg Kyte.
And I'm Caleb Newquist.
Today, Caleb, very exciting today. We get to share a recorded episode that we recorded live for More North America's member appreciation event, Fraud in Focus. More North America is an association of accounting and consulting firms, but it's not just any association of accounting and consulting firms. It's a member of More Global, which is the 11th largest accounting network in the world.
Man, in the world?
In the whole damn world, Caleb.
Man, that's pretty big, Greg.
That's a lot. There's a lot of world, and they're the 11th largest.
Yeah, that's not bad. Now, just to be clear, we are taking some liberties by calling this a live podcast. We presented it live, but it was also over Zoom, so we didn't have like a live studio audience or anything, and so you won't hear laughing, and you won't hear booing, and you won't hear heckling. We missed all that.
We heckled each other.
We heckled each other,
but
right.
no audience heckling.
Right, no audience heckling. But anyway, that's kind of the context around the liveness of it.
Right, and also I always think it's funny when something's said to be recorded live because it's still a recording.
Yeah.
So it was recorded, and if something's recorded, then it's not live.
Right.
So it's more like think of it like Prince's live album, not his studio a Purple Rain album. That's basically the difference that we've got.
Right. But in any case, regardless of the status of the liveness of the podcast, if your firm is looking for a fun and engaging live or not live presentation on fraud or ethics, we can do that. So send us an email at ohmyfraud@earmarkcpe.com for pricing and availability.
And with that, Caleb, let's allow our listeners to enjoy a very fun presentation that we gave live to More North America. So our story today does take place in Clark County, Indiana, and it begins in 2014. Clark County, Indiana, as you can see from this map, sits immediately north of Louisville, Kentucky, which, Caleb, you always like to make sure that we designate our states that aren't states but are rather...
Commonwealth.
Right. And he
Kentucky
does
is a commonwealth.
And you do that just to infuriate me because I don't know the difference.
Yeah, Greg doesn't recognize commonwealths. He only recognizes states.
And to me, they're all states. So
yeah,
the 50 nifty United States. I learned that song as a kid and it stuck. So anyways, Clark County, Indiana sits just across the Ohio River from Louisville, Kentucky. And also, like I said, our story begins in 2014. And if you don't remember 2014, the top song was Happy by Pharrell Williams, which I think is a great song because so many people absolutely hate that song. And a song titled Happy that brings so much unhappiness. To me, there's something delightful about that.
There's something very delightful about that.
Yep.
I agree.
Also, back in 2014, the top movie of 2014 was Guardians of the Galaxy, featuring a recently hunked up Chris Pratt. Most people don't remember pre-Guardians Chris Pratt. He was a little bit doughy, and I loved him.
I loved doughy Chris Pratt too on Parks and Rec. That was my favorite Chris Pratt. Yeah, same.
Yep. And back in 2014, we were all worried about the Ebola virus and blissfully unaware of the coronavirus. 2014 was also when a then 42-year-old fella named Jamey Noel won his first election to become the sheriff of Clark County, Indiana. His campaign was helped by none other than Mike Pence. Does that name ring a bell to anyone? Mike Pence, anyone? Nope. It's been too long. Not anymore. Look it up. Google him. Jamey Noel not only won his race for sheriff in 2014, he was also reelected to the position in 2018. And now is when we're going to actually reveal how much a county sheriff makes. Jamey Noel, by 2022, he was making $169,000 a year is what he was making, which and from the research, I wasn't able to get a starting salary for him, but from the research I did, it looks like he was probably around $100,000. Now, Caleb.
Yes.
The population, if I'm remembering right from the research, the population of Clark County, Indiana is less than 200,000 people. So, and also when I was looking, like I just did, I asked ChatGPT to tell me what the ranges were for sheriffs, county sheriffs, and I think ChatGPT probably just gave me some averages from around the country, and 169,000 was well above. I think ChatGPT said 115 is what most sheriffs were making in 2022. So he's doing pretty well as a sheriff. But also, just to put this in context, both in the time and the place, his salary was a little bit more than twice the median household income in Indiana in 2022. Let's see. Yeah, so I have the data. 2023 median household income in Indiana was about $77,000. So he was more than double that. So if we're talking about Jamey's financial position, he's doing pretty good. He's not
doing fine.
Yeah,
he's doing fine.
That's a great salary to have. He's not super rich, but he's doing fine. Some other interesting things about Jamey Noel is before becoming Clark County Sheriff, he served as an Indiana State Trooper for 22 years. Makes sense. If you're a trooper and have ambition, sheriff's something you're going to shoot for after a long tenure as a trooper. And before that, Jamey Noel, right out of college, he worked on a fire crew, which is important to know because while he was sheriff, he was also simultaneously serving as the head of the Utica Township Volunteer Firefighters Association. And now, this might be surprising to you out there, but the Utica Township Volunteer Firefighters Association is a volunteer firefighters association.
Huh?
What? And as such, it relies heavily on volunteers.
Okay.
But also in terms of it, just because its staff is volunteer, but they still have to have real fire equipment, and so it relies heavily on community support and fundraising to be able to purchase and maintain the equipment. Not exclusively on fundraising and community support, but heavily on community support and fundraising to purchase and maintain equipment. Another interesting fact about Jamey Noel is that he had a third job as a TV star. He was prominently featured in season 1 of the show 60 Days In on A&E. You know, that show that no one's ever heard of or watched before now.
I had not heard about it. I was not familiar with the show prior to doing the research for this podcast, and I do see someone in the comments saying that they did watch it. So maybe that person already knows how this story is going to end, but nevertheless, they certainly know how 60 Days In goes.
Right. So basically what happened is when Jamey became sheriff, he inherited a huge problem at the Clark County Jail, specifically violence and drugs among the inmates and corruption among the correctional officers. And in the show, they said that people were getting arrested on purpose because it was easier and cheaper to get drugs in jail than it was to get drugs on the street. And they also suspected, which makes perfect sense to me, that the drugs were getting in at least in part or possibly in large part through jail employees, through the correctional officers themselves.
Sounds like we got a lot of 60 Days In viewers on the pod today, Greg, in the audience.
Here if we shouldn't waste too much time on this, but we both watched some episodes.
I've watched 2.5 episodes, I believe,
and
maybe 3.
I watched 3.5 episodes. The whole time I was going, I don't need to watch any more than the first half of the first episode to get what I need for the podcast. But I watched 3.5 episodes, and the whole time I was going, I need to stop watching this. This is not good television. But I couldn't do it. I couldn't extricate myself for 3.5 episodes.
You in.
And then I had to go to the bathroom, and I was like, thank goodness I can actually stop watching this show. So I turned it off, and I haven't looked back, Caleb.
As you may or may not be aware, there are 2 kinds of sheriffs, as our polling question just illuminated for us: appointed and elected. Many people argue that all sheriffs should be appointed because elected sheriffs generally have far less accountability. Oh, what a surprise. That's kind of how I feel. So there's less oversight for those elected sheriffs because they were given their job by voters, and they don't generally lose their jobs unless they're voted out. And I don't know about you, but I don't follow my sheriff's races closely. Greg, do you follow your sheriff's race closely?
Listen, I am ashamed at how little research I do of the down ballot options on my ballots. I tell you what, I give it my best shot. I will at least Google everyone on there to see. But sometimes, you know, it's well, yeah. So the short answer is no. I don't pay attention to it.
Okay.
The longer answer is I do enough to not feel guilty for casting a vote when I do. But the nice addendum to that is, on principle, I never vote for anyone who's running unelected or unopposed.
Oh.
If it's just one person running for county coroner, they're not getting Greg Kyte's vote.
Yeah, especially if they're not a doctor.
Especially if they're not a doctor. But anyways,
anyway.
Are you the same? Wait, are you the same way? Do you vote? Do you cast a vote for people who are running unopposed?
I believe I think it's a mix. It depends on if I like the person's name or not.
Oh, is that it? Okay.
Yeah. I just get a sense of the name. Think about someone who I've known in my past that has a similar name, and like, did I like that person or did I not like that person?
Gotcha.
And that's how I make it. That's how I make the judgment call when people are running unopposed.
Right. So if someone's running unopposed, but their name is Max Powers or Biff Malibu, you're like, that's an awesome name.
Or Greg Smite. If there's a Greg Smite on my ballot, I might, and I do like the word Smite. If that's your last name, then congrats to you. You've got a great last name.
Right. Exactly.
Anyway, carrying on, moving on. The problem, as we have just kind of discussed, is that most people in general don't know what sheriffs do. They're low information voters, right? I think most of us, Greg, I certainly include myself in this, but I think of sheriffs as doing cop stuff. And I don't really think about the specifics too much unless I have an interaction with a sheriff. We don't really know how they do their job. We don't have a good sense of how they do their job.
Well, and whenever I have an interaction with law enforcement, my assumption is whatever you're doing is your job. I'm never like, are you sure you can help me with my flat tire on the side of the road? It's always like, cool, you're here.
Yeah.
I'll let you do your job.
Protect and serve, Greg. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Precisely.
Okay.
So
anyway, remember, we're in Indiana, and you can't. So, and then the law in Indiana says you cannot vote while you're incarcerated for a misdemeanor, and if you're convicted of a felony, you lose your right to vote until you have fully completed your sentence, whatever that might be. So, arguably, the people who actually have the most interaction with sheriffs performing their duties up close, and who might be most motivated to vote against an incumbent, they might actually not be able to vote at all.
Exactly.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So, what does a sheriff do?
I don't know, Caleb. What does a sheriff do?
I'm so glad that you asked, Greg. Here is a non-exhaustive list of things that sheriffs frequently do. Okay. The county sheriff leads the county sheriff's office and oversees the deputies. So deputies are not elected, right? Deputies are hired. It's basically a job.
Yeah. That seems like a gimme. That's like
right. Deputies patrol the county to prevent crime and respond to incidents. Deputies also investigate crimes, enforce traffic laws, respond to accidents. Sheriff manages the county jail. The sheriff's office organizes outreach programs to educate the public about safety and build community trust.
Oh, it's to build trust? Is that part of their job?
This is what you put in the script, Greg. I also I'm willing to give you the benefit of the doubt.
Nice. I'm trying to give a little theatrics and you just go, you wrote the damn script. I'm just reading the words that you put in my mouth. Stop trying to be cute. Okay, cool. Let's keep going.
The sheriff's office also delivers summonses, subpoenas, lawsuits.
Right. Interesting to note that the plural of summons is summonses. It's a weird one.
I like it very much, though. I like it very much.
Yeah.
They also handle evictions and property repossessions ordered by the court, and which is interesting because as I was going through the script, I thought, well, everything I know about repossessions, I learned from Repo Man, the 1984 film starring Emilio Estevez, but which is, I have to admit, not much. So, so I guess if repossessions need to be done, a sheriff, I guess, handles those.
Yeah. Probably certain types of repossessions, I would assume.
Yeah,
probably not all of them. I bet you Subaru North America is probably handling their own repossessions if I fall behind on my Crosstrek payments.
Yeah, that's probably right.
Yeah.
And finally, of course, subsequent to repossessions, the sheriffs also sell the property that was seized or repossessed. So I don't know, that list is that's a lot of cop stuff, right?
Yeah. It is. Yeah, I think all of that stuff neatly falls under the overarch. But honestly, Caleb, was there anything in that list that you're like, oh, I didn't realize that was part of the job? We watched 60 Days In, and that let me know that managing the county jail was under the sheriff. I would have assumed that was separate from the sheriff's office.
So as I kind of glossed over my experience with sheriffs. I have an uncle who was a sheriff's deputy.
Okay.
So he wasn't the sheriff, but he was a deputy, and he over a good portion of his career as a deputy, he oversaw the jail, the county jail. Yeah,
gotcha.
It is a small county in Nebraska.
Right. Also, have you ever received a summons, a subpoena, or a notification of a lawsuit? Like, were you ever served papers?
I cannot think of a time that I have been served, and this is where someone is going to knock on wood for me. But no, I cannot recall a time where I've been served. Have you been served, Greg?
I have.
Oh.
And but I'm confident it was not a sheriff who did it. This guy was...
citizens can do it. Yeah.
Okay.
They can be appointed. Like someone can designate you to serve someone else. Yeah.
But maybe if they're worried about someone being dangerous or something, then it's like, oh, a sheriff needs to do this. So
Correct.
that makes sense to me. So, but yeah, the guy who served me, he was so my day job, I work for a group of medical office buildings. I part of my job is obviously the accounting side of stuff, but I also do some of the management for the buildings. And I'm pretty sure this guy just looked sketchy and he wouldn't leave the lobby. So I went out to be like, "Hey, what you doing, bud?" And he was like, "I'm serving you papers." so that was not
wow.
But yeah, if he was wearing a big deputy's hat, I would have maybe
totally different encounter.
I would have approached him with different energy is what I would have. So like we said, Jamey Noel, he was elected sheriff in 2014 and again in 2018, but sheriffs, unlike state senators, have term limits. So Jamey Noel was prevented from seeking a third term as sheriff, so he stepped down at the end of 2022 because that was the end of his second term, and he was succeeded by Scotty Maples. That's the guy who's on the left in this picture, and Scotty Maples was also prominently featured in the first season of 60 Days In. As a matter of fact, Caleb, my memory is Scotty Maples was in more episodes, had more screen time than Jamey Noel did, at least for the parts that I watched. Is that what you remember?
That my experience is the same. Yeah, a lot of Scotty Maples.
Yep, a lot of Scotty Maples. Scotty Maples was the one who took Robert out when Robert was being an idiot. So, but you didn't get that. You didn't get that far. That's okay. Spoiler.
No. Oh yeah, I didn't get that far. And thanks for spoiling it. So, yeah. So now I after this webinar is over, I don't know what I have to look forward to.
Right. No, most people don't. But shortly after Scotty Maples, which also, it's interesting side note, apparently everyone in Indiana has a child's name. We've got Jamey, we've got Scotty. I'm sure anyone else that we name drop is going to be Davey,
Joey,
or there's
definitely some Joeys.
Yeah, exactly. So, but shortly after Scotty Maples was elected as the sheriff, he found a hidden wiretap in an office in an assistant chief's office in the sheriff's department, and that wiretap led directly to Jamey Noel's former office. It was his former office at this point because he had stepped down as sheriff. So that's a weird thing to see. Here's a quote. here's a quote from a release that was a press release that Scotty released, as people do for press releases. Anyways, it says, on December 30th, 2022, I discovered Jamey Noel had installed a secret listening device in an office. After this discovery, I ordered an office-wide review into how the sheriff's office ran and spent money. That review uncovered more disturbing information about Jamey Noel. I was shocked at the evidence of crimes we uncovered in our review and the steps that Jamey Noel had taken to conceal that information from everyone. That's why I contacted the Indiana State Police and asked them to conduct an independent investigation. Now, Caleb, I don't know about you, but if it was me and I found a listening device, like a wiretap in my office, my first thing would be like, oh, Jamey Noel was a paranoid control freak. I wouldn't be like, we got to check the books. We found a listening device. Somebody's been stealing money. I'd be like, no, Jamey Noel is a weirdo, and
Right.
he's trying to micromanage us. Not, he's stealing all the money, people. All the money is gone. So the thing to me, and this like legit, this is my thought of listening to that going, you jumped immediately from wiretap to stolen money. You knew something, Scotty Maples. That's what I think.
Yes.
There's Scotty Maples, as he's not implicated in anything that happened here, but in my mind, I go, the way he presented it seemed sketchy to me.
Why is he discovering these listening devices?
Yeah. Well, not so much. I get
Or did
it
he go
that-
looking for it?
Oh,
I don't know.
right. I guess that's true. How did he figure? Well, probably because he took Jamie's old office and he's like, "What's this speaker for?" That's what I. Jamie just forgot to put it in his banker's box as he was leaving the office.
Right.
But continue. So an investigation was launched by the Indiana State Police, which is a separate department from the sheriff's office. And one of the things discovered by that investigation was also that Jamie would have sheriff's office employees work and perform maintenance on his personal property, investment properties, and business properties. And they did that work while they were on the clock for the Clark County Sheriff's Office. So, Caleb, that's not necessarily fraud. It likely is, but it's not. It's easily abuse of public resources, is what we can say for that. And also, Caleb, I'm 100% sure that this is not how it happened, but it's so fun to imagine a bunch of cops in their brown sheriff's deputy uniforms and in their goofy brown hats, just like raking leaves and washing windows and taking out the trash for Sheriff Jamey Noel around his house to serve and protect, emphasis on the serve. And I do have to say, this is my favorite slide of our entire slide deck because I love artificial intelligence. Think what you will. I have a Leonardo AI, and I asked it to make me a picture of my fun little fantasy of what this was like, and it came up with this, which was delightful. And if you want, take some time.
I have no notes. I have no notes for Leonardo on this. I think this is the perfect depiction of your fantasy.
Yeah, I wish they were wearing the sheriff's hats, but apart from that, it's perfect.
It would be a nice touch. But
anyways, so enough of our fun with that. So unsurprisingly, this investigation that started at the sheriff's office eventually led the state police to search Jamie's home as well as his offices at the Utica Township Volunteer Firefighters Association. The search of his home revealed the extent of his lavish lifestyle, and the investigation of the volunteer fire department revealed that, listen, millions of dollars had been misappropriated from the volunteer fire department. Not million of dollars, millions of dollars had been, and which is mind blowing. Then a separate state audit in early 2024 revealed that more than $900,000 of the Clark County Jail's commissary fund had also been illegally used for Jamey Noel's benefit. In March of 2024, investigators seized 26 shipping containers filled with $7 million worth of missing military surplus equipment, including vehicles and a train engine.
Wait, what's that?
Military vehicles and a train engine was in one of these shipping containers. All of it belonged to the sheriff's department, and all of it was being hidden by Jamey. And yeah, a train engine, because yeah, in the 2020s, sheriff's department need trains to transport all the gold from the bank. I don't know what they need a train engine for.
I mean, maybe he had a child that really wanted like a life-size Thomas the Train for Christmas, Greg.
Oh, right.
Because that makes perfect sense.
Don't get me wrong. I understand train aesthetics. If I could get an old rusty train engine and somehow crane it into my backyard just as a set piece, I would do it if it was free and the crane was also free. I wouldn't really do it, but also if someone else had it, I'd be like, cool train, bro. That's maybe what I'd do. Is the extent of it. But here's the interesting thing.
There's an interesting thing? Like the train? I was satisfied with the train engine, to be honest.
The interesting thing is that this $6 million of military equipment and a train engine belonged to the sheriff's office. And again, in the research, I couldn't find any more information about this military equipment.
Okay.
What I did see was that it was clear that Jamey had hidden it, but they never went so far as to say that Jamey had taken it. So it was more like it's almost like the investigators were like, hey, what the hell is all this crap? And Jamey was like, oh yeah, those belong to work. And it was like, that was it. They were like, cool, we'll take them back to work then. And that was kind of the extent of the military stuff, but still very notable. And
You're right. That was interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
Sorry I doubted you.
Thank you. And then in addition to all of that, it was also discovered that Jamey was running a vehicle transfer scheme in which he sold vehicles from the sheriff's office to himself for $1.
Oh, well, that's a good deal.
It's an amazing deal. And again, not too many details about this, but my guess, this is me putting some pieces together, is that since the sheriff office conducts those auctions that we were talking about to sell the seized property, that Jamey would just sell cars to himself for $1 before those cars happen to sell at auction. He just sort of short-circuited the process.
Like we mentioned earlier, Jamey stole millions of dollars, primarily from the Utica Township Volunteer Firefighters Association. And the way he did it was by using fire department credit cards to make millions of dollars of personal purchases. Nothing complicated, Greg.
Nope. It's maybe the simplest fraud that we've seen.
Yeah.
I mean, no, but seriously, arguably this is the simplest one. There was nothing complex about it.
Yeah. The Firefighters Association board members told state investigators that they were unaware of Noel's alleged illegal acts, saying the group had not met in several years and Noel had been in total control. I personally don't like the sound of that, but maybe I'm a stickler. I don't know.
Well, the board is supposed to be oversight for your nonprofit organization, and the board should not have to be called for a meeting. The board should schedule its own meetings to provide oversight for the nonprofit for which they are in existence to give oversight.
You're such an idealist, Greg. You're such an idealist.
I mean,
nothing's perfect.
In my utopia, boards of nonprofits meet every now and then.
Show up. Just show up, you know.
Just show up.
Just show up every once in a while.
I mean, although I would like to say, if they did have regular board meetings, I mean, I don't know. We'll get to this a little later.
Okay.
At the end of the show. But if they had regular board meetings, I'm not certain that they might have even found the fraud.
Right.
That's possibility.
Hold that thought. Presumably, the Volunteer Firefighters Association was not required to be audited. And if the board wasn't providing any oversight, then yeah, the fire department's finances became Jamey's personal, inexhaustible piggy bank. our favorite part of almost any show is how our perpetrator spent their loot. So
Yes.
here's a I don't know if this is an exhaustive list. It's probably not an exhaustive list, but
No.
it's a pretty darn good list of what Jamey and his family purchased with public funds.
Not an exhaustive list, but still a long list. So
Yeah.
buckle up.
Yeah. Okay. Tanning services,
Clothes,
Amazon purchases,
beauty appointments,
cosmetics,
luxury travel,
luxury cars,
classic cars.
meals at Hooters and Waffle House.
No, just to note, no meals at Olive Garden. I mean, just a side note, take from that as you will.
Yeah.
Netflix, which is a weird one on the list to me because it's like, did he just have his Netflix subscription being paid by the company card? Because I don't think there's any in Netflix purchases that you can make. So I think that must be why that's on the list.
Yeah. Vaping products.
Because he's classy. Nearly $200,000 in tuition and college expenses for Jamey's two youngest daughters. Her oldest daughter apparently too dumb to get into college, but the other two brilliant and needed some help with tuition.
Ferragamo shoes.
Do you know what Ferragamo shoes are?
I do.
Oh, I do not, because
They're very fancy. They're very.
must-
It is a luxury product.
I think Ferragamo in Italian means fancy. He also purchased a 1958 Cessna airplane on his credit card, I believe. That's again, the only thing that the research said that how he got money out of the Utica Township Volunteer Fire Department was through the credit card, and he bought a 1958 Cessna airplane for $25,000, and it says that he used it to make trips to Florida and Cuba. And I'm like going, that was part. I have to speculate
Probably
that
should've
maybe
stayed in
that's
Cuba.
not correct. How do you go to Cuba? How do you just fly to Cuba? I don't think you can do that.
What do you mean?
I mean, well, of course you can fly to Cuba, but when you land, aren't they going to be like, you can't be here and send you home?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, again.
No. The travel bans, that's Greg, where have you been? People have been going to Cuba for a few years now.
But but I've looked into it because I would love to go to Cuba.
No.
And you have to have a special visa to be able, you can't just book a flight on Delta to Cuba. You have to have listen, back when we were both writing for Going Concern, I tried to go to Cuba, and I said I was shut up. I said I was a journalist because I wrote blog posts for your website, and they did not accept it, and I couldn't go to Cuba. So I'm just saying there's something fishy about him flying a Cessna to Cuba. It's
All right.
weird.
All right.
Just admit that it's weird.
Okay, I'll admit it.
Okay, fine. Anyways, the list goes on.
Yeah, the list does go on. We're not done. Cincinnati Reds season tickets,
Uber rides,
liquor,
dry cleaning,
DoorDash,
more than $50,000 of cigars, which, Caleb, we talked about this. You're not a cigar smoker, right?
I am not, but that seems like a lot to spend on cigars.
I am a cigar smoker. I smoke one, maybe a few every year. And if those are cigars that are in my price range, he could have purchased 2,500 cigars for that, which I think also means jaw cancer. I think he purchased jaw cancer.
Right.
Should have been one of those on the list.
Here's another good one. He had more than $183,000 of custom suits.
Right. And those don't include his sheriff's uniforms. This again, why do you need that much custom suits? He's not wearing them to work.
Well, I mean, if you got all those cigars and you're taking, flights to Cuba, you're feeling fancy. I'm sure you're feeling fancy.
I mean, he is. Did you see this picture of him here on this slide? I mean, yeah.
It's very
lavish.
very 00 look right there, Greg.
Yep. And to round out our list, and this was odd to me as well, he took $33,000 of public funds, misappropriated it, and then contributed it to various Republican candidates and campaigns. So a Robin Hood of sorts, if we shall.
Yes. But on top of all that, while Jamey was sheriff, he also had an affair with a Clark County councilwoman who got pregnant and had his child. So, and according to the court documents, Jamey used over $100,000 in fire department funds to pay his court-ordered child support.
that is the weirdest part of this case to me. Is for so many reasons.
Yeah.
Here you use. Yeah. Anyways, I don't even think I have to say why. I'm not going to expound on it. It's the weirdest part of the case to me. So, with all that information in the hands of the state police who were doing the investigation, Jamey Noel was arrested on November 8th, 2023. But his bail was set at $75,000, and he paid bail 1 hour after his arrest in cash. Is that suspicious?
Nah.
No. You get out. Could you get? Listen, I want to say I'm in around the same tax bracket as Jamey Noel. I could not just find $75,000 in cash in 1 hour. I couldn't
not
do
in
it.
an hour. No.
Yeah.
No.
So dude's got cash there. So, but again, some people, I guess I don't want to be judgmental because some people, that's,
Look, some people put cash under the mattresses. Some people have them in a safe in their closet with loads of firearms. And so, no judgment, but it's been known to happen.
Yeah, I'm still saying that's pretty fast to get $75,000
or confiscated drug money. Carolyn,
possibly, yes. So he was arrested in November, paid his bail immediately, but then 5 months later, speaking of firearms, guns were found in Jamey Noel's home, which was a violation of his bond, so his bail was upped to $1 million, and he was sent to jail for 60 days. There is video of the judge sending him to jail for 60 days, and he says, what should I do for contempt of court for you? I know, 60 days in, and he just totally force-fed Jamey his own reality TV show as he sent him off to jail. It was so clear that this judge just effing hated Jamey.
Just one side note, one of the videos that I saw, the judge was rapping his gavel so hard that he broke the gavel.
That was the video when he was sent to jail for.
Oh yeah, I didn't watch it with audio. I was just watching the visual, and it looked like he was trying to chop the head off a chicken. That was the motion that he was making with his arm. That was the force that was coming down was equivalent to taking a chicken's head off. But nevertheless, great.
Not wrong. And so just to finish the story of the judge, that later his bail went, so it started at 75,000, was up to 1 million when the parole was broken and when he was sent to jail, and then later it was increased again to 1.5 million. And all I can tell was that was because the judge was pissed and hated Jamey. And there's no other reason for that whatsoever. Interestingly enough, as after the arrest, some 40 vehicles were confiscated from Jamey's home. This is a picture of Jamey's barn at his house. There was 40 cars were confiscated, including a bunch of classics, which you can kind of see in this picture, like classic muscle cars. Here's a short list of some of the cars. If you're any car buffs, any classic car buffs out there, there were two 1970 Plymouth Superbirds that likely were worth about $200,000 each. There was a 1959 Corvette, which was probably worth around $75,000, a 66 Charger, which was probably around $50,000, maybe more, give or take. And there was a 1968 Charger, which could have easily been worth over $100,000 itself. Now, Caleb.
Yes.
I own a 1973 Ford Bronco.
I do know that.
Ask me how many of those I own.
How many?
One. Only one, Caleb.
Oh,
I only own one. I only own one.
Okay.
And I constantly
that's a reasonable number.
And I'm constantly asking myself, should I keep this car? I'm scared to drive it because it breaks down so often. It really is just a garage filler is what it is. But I love it, but also have just one. So again, the fact that this guy has 40 vehicles stacked on top of each other in his garage, and he's just a public servant, that's sketchy.
That's weird. It's weird.
In August of 2024, Jamey pleaded guilty to 27 felony charges. 3 people testified in court that their family members had died because of inadequate emergency services, blaming delays in ambulance services as a main reason for why they lost a loved one. The implications being that those deaths could have been avoided if Jamey had not diverted needed funds to his cigars and cars and Hooters.
And Waffle House.
And Waffle House.
I love Waffle House.
I love Waffle House too. Still inexcusable. That I mean, really, that last part of the story puts some added gravity to what happens when people misappropriate funds. Embezzlement's not just rich people getting rich with little or no consequences.
Well, especially taxpayer dollars, right? Like
yeah.
I think that's the takeaway.
And then even up there, it's first responders dollars too.
Yep.
So I mean, it's because we had one other case where we looked at someone, interestingly enough, who stole a bunch of money from a volunteer fire department, and you just go, okay, the case. I mean, we love to have fun. We want to look at what's funny in the case, but also it's impossible to escape the grave ramifications of cases like this. And then to add insult to injury, or more specifically to add injury to injury, there was so little oversight at the Utica Township Volunteer Firefighters Association that no one canceled Jamey's credit card, and he spent $40,000 more of fire department money after he got arrested. Caleb, did you hear that?
I certainly did.
That's ridiculous.
That's ridiculous.
If someone gets fired, you cancel their card. You ask for their cards back.
Ideally,
you cancel it. If they get arrested, your first thing should be, we need to get that credit card. They didn't, and he spent $40,000 more.
Again, Greg, maybe in this utopia that you imagine of accountability, I don't know. I don't know what your expectations are, Greg.
Just an idealist.
All right. In October 2024, Jamey Noel was sentenced to 12 years in prison plus 3 years of probation. He was also ordered to pay $270,000 of fines plus restitution of over $3.1 million. In a separate civil case, the state ordered Jamey to repay $918,000 he misappropriated from the Clark County Jail commissary. And I don't know, if I just as an aside, the fact that a commissary has that much money at all is kind of surprising, but maybe I'm just naive. Maybe I'm just like, a lot of money running through a, county jail commissary. I don't know.
It was a TV show, County Jail Commissary.
True. Anyway, Jamey's wife, who also faces charges related to his misappropriations, has filed for divorce.
Just as an epilogue, Sheriff Scotty Maples released a statement the day that Jamey was sentenced, and here's some excerpts from that statement. He said, "Following Jamey Noel's arrest, my office fully worked with the Indiana State Police. My team and I spent hundreds of hours reviewing records alongside investigators, and I even provided them with an office in our building to facilitate their work. The investigation revealed a number of felonies. Of those 27 felonies, only one ultimately was attributed to the Clark County Sheriff's Office." So he broke the case, but he's trying to rebuild public trust and say, but we have things locked down here at the Sheriff's Office. He only committed one felony here, which was the almost $1 million he stole from the prison. Anyways.
Well, look. I mean, just look at this picture, Greg. He has taken it so seriously that he's not given ties to his deputies anymore. He's the only person allowed to have a tie. And I think that shows commitment, if nothing else.
Absolutely. If you're willing to strangle yourself at work, you're.
But don't expect other people to.
Yeah, there's definitely, if you're wearing a tie, there's no wiretaps in your office. His statement goes on to say this. It says, "To ensure transparency, I have implemented unprecedented measures. Just a few months ago, during a Clark County Council meeting, I publicly released records detailing every expenditure from the commissary fund. Additionally, we have revamped our purchasing procedures to prevent future abuses. I am committed to full transparency in the use of public funds. That's because that's what you deserve. One of the things that was fun for me doing the research is I actually found various posts while the story was breaking, some of which were even on Scotty Maple's personal Facebook. And just reading the comments, every single comment was, "This friggin' sheriff's full of crap. He stole money too. How could you be this guy's right-hand man for 8 years and not know that he's stealing $3.1 million? You had to have had a ride in one of his Plymouth Superbirds. You lying son of a bitch. Where's the money that you took?" And I mean, that was the tone of every single.
You were quoting.
Right. Quoting from Facebook. So
yeah, definitely all caps then.
Yeah, exactly. And that is that's the case of the crooked cop Jamey Noel.
So, Greg, what did we learn?
Well, it's funny. We've been doing this podcast for 3 years now, and even with jaw-dropping cases, a lot of times it's not so much lessons learned; it's lessons revisited. One of the main ones with this one, which it was so egregious, we can't not talk about it, and that is just the red flag behavior of living beyond your means. According to the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners biannual report that they released called the Report to the Nations on Occupational Fraud, 39% of all fraudsters exhibit the red flag behavior of living beyond their means. Jamey clearly living beyond his means. I mean, again, that one picture of him smoking a cigar in a tuxedo. I mean, again, not that you can't be a sheriff and live it up once in a while, but it sounded like that was a regular thing. His cars, his lifestyle. He was even known. That was another funny thing that I remember. I think it was in an interview with his sister-in-law. Is that she was like, they were just there would be sightings, like there was almost like a Facebook group going, "Oh, I saw him again out to eat tonight again. I guess they never cook at home," that kind of thing. So he was known for that. But what's interesting about this is so often, even if there is a red flag behavior of living beyond their means, people are going to try to justify how you could possibly live beyond your means. And one of the things that could be the case, and I'm not sure, maybe Jamey even used this to explain his lavish lifestyle, is that he wasn't just a sheriff, he was on TV. And a lot of people assume if you're on TV in whatever manner, you are rich. Not the case with Jamey Noel. When we dug into the credits on the show, he wasn't even a producer. I thought he would be a producer on the show. He was just on-screen talent, and that was it, which probably means that he got like whatever the industry union rate.
Yep.
The union rate was for being on screen. So maybe for the 2 seasons that he was on the show, maybe he made between $10,000 and $20,000 is maybe my guess, which wouldn't even be enough to buy one Plymouth Superbird. So there's that. So living beyond their means is one thing. The other thing that I think is interesting is nonprofits are especially susceptible for fraud, and even more particularly something like a volunteer fire department, because it's easier, because who's going to volunteer for your fire department? It's going to be firefighters. It's probably hard to get a volunteer bookkeeper at your volunteer fire department. Often, as we mentioned, there's no requirement for audits in these nonprofits, and there's a reluctance by the board to spend money on things that are non-mission critical, things like audits or bookkeepers. And finally, you've got these people volunteering their time. You're going to do whatever you can to try to make life easy for your volunteers, like not give them tons of red tape for when they're making purchases for the fire department. So if you think about it like that, it's unfortunate, but it makes sense why nonprofits are more susceptible to fraud. But Caleb, you had something you're going to say kind of as a counterpoint to that, maybe.
Yeah, I guess the only thing, and I'm not going to win any fans with this opinion, but I guess these small organizations, whether they're nonprofit or for-profit, I think they owe it to themselves to just make things slightly more onerous or tedious. And because we've just seen countless cases of small organizations, of nonprofits or businesses or governments. In this case, Dixon, Illinois comes to mind. The little town in Maine comes
Yep,
to mind.
Claudia Viles in Anson, Maine.
That's
Yep,
right, Anson,
absolutely.
Maine. There's just no checks and balances. And I don't mean to say that there's few checks and balances. I mean to say that there are no checks and balances.
Right.
And so there's usually one person in charge who more or less does everything with no oversight whatsoever. And I think if you care, if you even care the slightest bit about how your organization is run, whether it's a nonprofit, whether it's a business, or whether it's a component of a local government, you should either appoint someone, especially if money is, not, if you don't have resources to pay this person, you volunteer them, or you if you do have resources, you hire them just at the very, very least to monitor your finances. And ideally that person is highly ethical, a stickler for rules, and has an iron backbone. And I would be very happy to see more small organizations take that seriously. And not that they don't take it seriously, but we've just seen time and time again where the lack of checks and balances, the lack of controls, results in disaster. And I think we could all do with a little less disaster. Don't you, Greg?
I do.
Yeah.
And that's it for this episode. Remember, if someone stole millions of dollars from your organization using a credit card, maybe consider canceling that credit card.
And also remember, if you're behind on child support for one or more of your illegitimate children, the Utica Township Volunteer Firefighters Association is looking for a new chief. Greg, that was so much fun.
That was a blast. So,
Yeah.
Such a fun case. I mean, even though it was a virtual audience, it was fun, the interactions that we got from them.
Yes.
Just a wonderful experience with More North America.
I have found I generally detest the Zoom chat, but when you're presenting, it's actually quite useful. So I have kind of I found a common ground of tolerance when it comes to the Zoom chat.
Yeah. Plus, it was fun. It was like a time machine for us, because the listeners might not know this, is our podcast actually was born from a bunch of webinars that we did together over a couple of years. Not all, the minority of which were about fraud, but we would do a regular fraud webinar together. And so it was kind of fun doing the podcast, but doing it in a webinar form. So it's kind of taking us back to our roots.
Definitely.
Well, if you would like to drop us a line about anything, if you have a fun fraud case that you know of that we haven't covered, anything like that, please feel free to send us an email at ohmyfraud@earmarkcpe.com. And Caleb, where can people find you if they'd like to contact you directly?
You can reach me on LinkedIn /Caleb Newquist. Greg, where can people reach you?
LinkedIn's the best place. I'm Greg Kyte, CPA on LinkedIn, so you can find me there.
Oh My Fraud is written by Greg Kyte and myself. Our producer is Zach Frank. Rate, review, and subscribe to the show wherever you listen to podcasts. If you listen on Earmark, you can get free CPE, just like those More North America folks. What if they get wait a minute. So if they get the CPE for being in the live presentation and then they listen to this podcast,
they're wasting their time, man.
Wait,
Or
are they
they
double
could
dipping? They're double dipping.
They could commit CPE fraud.
Yes.
They could do that.
And then wind up on our show.
Exactly.
All right. Join us next time for more avarice, swindlers, and scams from stories that will make you say, "Oh my fraud."
Oh my fraud.